right, so let's talk about your independent study assignment. This is an opportunity for you to practice your skills and some of the things we have covered in lecture. And if not, there's been some external links because then you can dive a little bit deeper if you have questions, or you can set up a time to meet with me via Zoom to go over. But what you'll notice is that every single option still has the same requirements. It's just how you do those requirements. So every option requires you to build and set up a shelter, a sleep system, put together a 10 essentials packet, and finally pick one of the 4 options as far as skill sets are concerned. This is assignment that is graded all or nothing, similar to the rest of the assignments in this class, because it's a credit, no credit class. So in order to do this, you will have to fill out the entirety of the assignment paperwork, which I will show you shortly. With your shelter options, you can do either a tent or a tarp structure that you can build. I recommend that you ask around and see if you can borrow people's gear for setting this up, or do that tarp structure as well. And we'll get down to the details of that shortly. The sleep system, you're required to have a sleeping bag and you're required to have a sleeping pad. If you decide to do options 2 or 3, then you can use a yoga mat as your sleeping mat, and I will put that into air quotes. This is only allowed if you're not going backpacking, okay? There is no, as I mentioned in the lecture, there is no R value for yoga mats and would not work for using in the backcountry to keep you warm. Your 10 essentials list you will create at home. You can get creative with this and start using things that you can find around the house or borrow from people, okay? Some things you may not be able to find, and so you'll need to come up with some sort of creative alternative, and then you will explain why you did that. If you have any questions on this, feel free to email me. Okay, your first option is to actually go backpacking. Set up a tent, spend the night in the backcountry, and document that process with pictures. This is only allowed if you're an experienced backpacker or if you are going backpacking with an experienced backpacker. All right, so I don't want anyone to get hurt or for something to go wrong because of an assignment for this class. Option 2 is to go hiking. If you go hiking, what you're going to be doing is documenting the things that the leave no trace principles that you would be taking into consideration while you're on your backpacking trip. For example, if you were to pick a campsite that you would normally set up your tent, you're going to show me that you're not using that on a sensitive habitat. So in the middle of a meadow or something like that, you're going to show how you won't be leaving an impact where you would have set up your tent. You are still required to set up your structure. You are still required to use a stove or a water filter, which I will get into later, but you don't have to actually do that in the backcountry. You can do that in your backyard at home. The upside to this is you go hiking and you're looking at the real deal, but you're not required to spend the night outside. Camp in your backyard. Okay, you can set up camp in your backyard. Just explain what you would be thinking about in your explanation when you're setting up your tent, or you are using a water filter, so on and so forth. If none of these work, you do have an option that's an alternative option, but you have to come up with this option by yourself and get that approved by me. So what I don't want is for students to email me saying, I can't do any of those 3 options. You need to come up with the alternative if you can't make one of those work, and I will let you know if that can be approved or if we need to make some tweaks to make that acceptable. What to complete for credit. You need to have a picture of your shelter and an explanation of why you chose that based on leave no trace principles, a picture of your sleep system, and all explanations, except for the sleep system, need to be connected to leave no trace principles. You'll find the link in your module. Outside of the three we've discussed so far, you're going to pick one of these three options. You're either going to document yourself using some sort of water filtration system, you're going to document yourself using a backpacking stove and cooking backpacking food, or you are going to show how you would store your food properly in the backcountry. Again, you'd pick one of these three options. There's another assignment. This is the smaller version, but what you are essentially going to do is put a picture of your shelter and explain using leave no trace principles why you set up your shelter where you did. Your sleep system, you're going to explain why you would pick what you picked. Maybe you talk about the temperature of your sleeping pad, that was discussed in lecture, or the R value of your sleeping pad, that was discussed in lecture. You're going to show a picture of your 10 essentials and explain why that's important to have. And then you are going to use a water filtration system, stove and cook system, or proper food storage. So like I said, you'll pick one of these three. Some examples are in this assignment as well as to what these pictures might look like. So this is a tent versus a tarp shelter, okay? So a tarp shelter, you can also purchase tarp shelters, but this is if you were to truly create something in your backyard by yourself, okay? This might be something similar to a sleep system that you would show me. You can take a picture of it in your tent or outside of your tent, but showing that you have that sleeping pad and that sleeping bag set up properly. These are your options for water filter. Maybe you do a pump system, maybe you do a gravity system, and it's a picture of you actually using this system to filter your water. Okay. Backpacking stove, you'll have a picture of you using a backpacking stove. Some of the explanations in your water and in your backpacking stove you can talk about is leave no trace. I need to be 100 feet away from a water source. I can't wash my food inside a water source. Something like that was talked about in lecture or that you find on that link. Food storage is your third option. And you can either do a bare canister or you can hang your food. Either of these are options, except for in the national parks where you have to use bare canisters. But for the sake of this assignment, you can just pick one or the other. If you use a bare canister, you need to explain what goes in your bare canister. So that's everything that is scented, including toothpaste or anything like that. If you hang your food, you need to show a picture similar to this one where you're showing how high up your food is hung, and you'll use this drawing here as a resource in how to do this correctly. So you need to get creative in finding a tree that works for this, okay? As far as how you'll document this, you'll upload it in the assignment. You'll upload this external file into the assignment. It's more detailed on Canvas. Let me know if you have any questions.